All right, so I was thinking about it. And I think it's just going to be better to Lego brick the literals before I take this too far. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that much extra to take this step. That might not be quite right. I think we're going to want literal member to still operate as a different thing. This will probably become something like RPG literal member kind. And this will be like null literal string count. Kind. This will be like hearts strength first, and then a list of members. So it's not a string list anymore. It's a literal member list, which can work as a string list, or it can work as a literal list or a combo list. The literal still has the hearts and the strength not separated out. But that then wipes out all of that. These become like this. So do these. Where are we at here? Okay. So for this, we have to do the extra work of saying when we build this, it's not a string 8 list. It's going to have to be tile member, or not tile, literal member first, member last, member count. Okay. So then instead of a list of tiles here, you'll get a member first equals member first, last, and count. First member. Member first. All right, member last. Member count. Got it. Copy member. And here we do it again. Member. Okay. So if that much is working now, it'll be a little easier to dump a literal. The way we'll do it, we'll pass an indent through with it, I think. And we'll say it's funny, they don't even know if they are characters, parties, or routes, the literals, which means, I mean, you don't necessarily need that yet. Interesting. Okay. Let's do it like this. We'll do indentation, hearts, strength, then a new line. And then we'll do, well, let's do a square bracket on that new line. And then a square bracket at the end with indent again. And then for each member, indent +1. Each of these will be one of the members, and the members will look like this. Switch on the member kind. Literal and string. And the literal we will print. Wait, let me do this a little bit more carefully. Okay. You'll print that much if the member count is greater than 0. Otherwise. So if you have no members, we won't do a square bracket. We'll just do end the thing. If you do have members, we'll just start with a open square bracket like that there. If you encounter a literal, then you do literal dump out, member literal, indent +1. If you encounter a string, you just stop and print the string. Still don't have anything to actually look at yet, but there's our dump function. So there's some character literals. And there are party literals, which look like this. And then there are routes. And a route literal can look like this. And so now the question is, can I dump all those and get what I expect? L1 indent 0, L2, L3, L4, M4F printf, new S1, S2, S3, L5, 6, and 7. Okay. Hearts 3, strength 1, taunt. Hearts 5, strength 1, scout. Hearts 1, strength 1, fly. Hearts 2, strength 2. And then captain, farmer, bat. Good. Now this is no hearts, no strength because it's not a character, but the party contains 2 hearts, 1 strength, and then 3 bats. That's good. That's right. 3 bats. This contains 5 hearts, 1 strength. This contains 2 hearts, 1 strength, 2 hearts, 1 strength, 2 hearts, 1 strength, 2 hearts, 1 strength. Bat, 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 bat. 5 hearts, 1 strength, 5 hearts, 1 strength. Cool. Yeah, that did all the right stuff. Secret Google Spy, no. This isn't going to be text-only console RPG. I'm just not doing the graphics part right now because I'm more so working on the programming interface iterations. How do you specify out the characters? But it's meant more as a either an engine or at least a simulator, which is what I've been calling it. For it to be an engine, I might need to actually have an answer for how you factor in player decisions, which I've kind of been avoiding. But it could get there. I think a part of the fun part about building the simulator first and making the simulator good is then you can build tools for crafting your final RPG that are based on all those simulation abilities. Okay. So that's proof of the, let's see, test the parser. So that's proof of the parser. Now So I didn't show this before, but starting up the second stream of the day, I got thinking about what was going wrong at first. I had originally drawn that what I wanted to do was to write a parser that would take the context and the script in and spit out a proto, but that got to the point where it was like tying in the parsing with modifying the state of the context. And so I wanted to factor it in such a way that I could get pure data in out on the parser. And so what we just did was we switched from going from script to literal, and then I Lego bricked the literals. I had already written the literals earlier, but I had them all as different types. So I just made a Lego brick literal, got the script parsing done much simpler that way, I think, in the testing. Now I need to be able to take the context and a literal to construct a proto. That way I can separate out the context modification operations from the parsing operations. You know, the pure data in, pure data out. The downside is, without the context, I can't resolve names like bat and sleep to IDs. I need a context for that part to work. So the literals just contain these as unresolved string names, kind of like an abstract syntax tree to a concrete syntax tree. These are just containing names. The next layer down is going to resolve them all to IDs. So originally I had said I would send down this proto loose thing. What's in the proto loose? Kind, name, hearts, strength, subproto. So this part is going to come straight from the literal. Insert name asks, what is an RPG simulator? Let me show you what the, let me run the old one for you. So I built a little prototype of this. And let me run it. This is the version I'm rewriting. That's going to take a minute to run. It's not a graphical game, it's a simulator. So we'll just let it run in the background and we'll check it in a couple minutes when it's done. And I'll tell you about what it did. Bad mic volume. Thanks for letting me know. I'll make a couple of adjustments. That should definitely help, I think. Is that good? Hopefully that makes a difference. Okay. Still kind of low, huh? All right, let me look around. It's my first time streaming in like months, so let's see. No. I don't have music coming through, do I? It looks like that should be off, but not totally sure. Um, what could I check? Does that do anything? Nothing. Nothing at all. Well, anyway. Hopefully it's not on my side. Maybe we'll need to wait until I get another person to give me some feedback or an idea, but I think everything should be normal. Okay, so the construction problem that I'm running into here is the binding of names to things. And there's two ways in which that's tricky. If the name, first of all, there's the decision of if the name goes inside the thing, or if the thing and the ID are nameless and a name can be used to point at one of them. You know what I mean? Because in the first option, if the name is contained in it, then each one of them has a unique name. Even if it's empty, what I mean by unique name is each one of them answers the question directly. It highlights a specific string. So if you have a proto and you want to know how to print it, you can just print the name. But of course, if the name is empty, then that might not be useful anyways. So if you're going to allow empty names, maybe that doesn't totally solve the problem, but then you can just have a fallback to a generic way to print the other fields in a case like that or something. Whereas if you don't put the name in there, which is what I'm entertaining, then you would always print its literal value. And so if you were making like a display where you wanted to see the names of things, you'd have to hold the names around in the containing context, right? You'd have some list of names, and you'd use the original list of names rather than the final list of protos to show what you're looking at. Another problem I have, though, is that I could very easily have multiple names, situations where I want multiple names to point at the same proto. And so maybe the idea of mapping from a proto to a name is a mistake. Another idea is I could have a special kind of proto that is just, a name, and it would then contain a sub ID to the one, like, so the name would have an ID, and then it would point to the data that it needs, right? So there'd be a name type here, and then there'd be like a name or a string element, which would exist here as a alternative to this or something. I don't know if I love that. I don't know what it solves or does for me, but it oh shit. Okay. Why don't we fix it like this? U32 hearts, U32 strength. There's a little bug in the text editor, and I have to get around it carefully. There we go. So it looks like this, the simulator. It shows columns here are the various character parties or player parties. Each row is a sort of road they can walk on with a set of encounters. So you can see, like, for this one, for instance, there are 3 encounters with this guy and 3 encounters with this guy. There are no encounters with 2 of these guys, which is what this one stands for. And so then we can see how many player characters got knocked out by the end of going across that road. So here 1.46 of them got knocked out, here 2.21 of them, here 2.04. So we can compare the strength of having this sort of mix of adventurers versus the farmers who don't have any special powers versus the mercenaries. So this is the point of the RPG simulator, is to be able to run automatically like little bot brains for the player to see how they perform against different combinations of challenges and see how good certain combos are in your design as you're iterating on it. As far as does it look like, are there any examples of existing games? I don't really know if there's an example of an existing game that it's like, to describe what I would picture if I were to make a game out of this, is imagine something kind of like a Final Fantasy roguelike. Like a classic turn-based RPG of some kind. Maybe not with the exact same game mechanics as Final Fantasy, but you know, you have a turn, you make some moves for your party, the other team has a turn, or maybe there's like, you know, a mix of turn order for all characters at the same time, so slower characters will go less often or whatever. You could structure your game however you want within the simulation. The point is the blending of that with the roguelike formula, which for whatever reason I don't see any examples of. But yeah, there's no need for this to know its own ID. That doesn't do it any good. Its ID is literally just proto minus protos. So then it's not that we want to send down a proto loose. It's that we want to send down a literal and have it add that in as a new proto. We could also go another step farther and add dedupe. So for instance, if I have a ++1 and then I have another ++1, well, these would both map to, you know, hearts 2, strength 1. Protos that look like this, right? This and this would be identical in their mapping. So I could maybe see a thing where I say, well, once we have the literal, we want a thing that can map. We don't necessarily want to get ID 30 and ID 31 separated as if they are separate things when they're actually identical, right? We would want to be able to map that back down. But that's not necessary. It's just an idea. I didn't really leave Rad. Rad stopped existing when Epic Games bought Rad, so I left Epic Games. I didn't really like working for a company that size. I really don't know how to navigate inside of a large hierarchical structure. That's why I left school too. Okay. So what's going to happen here from now on is you're going to submit a literal, and you're going to get back an ID for it. But this part here is going to get zeroed out. We're not putting anything into the map. And during validation, we care if space is available. We don't care about the name, because we're not submitting a name. We do care about sub IDs because we are submitting those. Okay. Question is, how do you earn money working C or low level C++ nowadays? Right now, I don't earn money that way. At least not a significant amount of money. I'm not making money on programming at all, actually. I mean, besides the money I make from doing all the research. Speaking of which, if you don't know, I guess I should just not assume that you know when I answer a question like that. What I mean is, I'm not like working a job. I am doing this Mr. Forth Lab thing, and so I'm making money from people who think that what I'm doing is worthwhile and come over here to mrforth.com/membership and join up on a monthly or yearly basis. And there's some cool perks and stuff that we set up for that. You know, that's what I'm doing. And also, like, looking for short-term contracting gigs and stuff from time to time. Yeah, exactly. I got a little head start on being able to do my own independent business with Forcoder. For sure. Okay, so when I submit one of these, the literal doesn't tell it what kind it's supposed to have. I guess I add that along with the literal as part of the construction process for now. Not sure if that's the way it should be or if the literals should start containing their kind, but right now they don't actually have any need for it because of the way the parsing is working. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so the literal contains a member count. That's what we want. Okay, actually this is where it becomes a problem right here. We can't pass the kind down because the literals contain literals themselves, and so we would need to be able to figure out what kind of literal to construct. It'd be better if the literals just told you what kind they were. So what's going to happen is that every kind of proto also has to be a kind of literal. It starts to get confusing. Insert name, text. Forcoder is the only text editor I ever made. Pretty sure. I don't think I did it again. Wait, that's the one that should be there. I don't know what I just got, but it wasn't the right thing. Oh yeah, this is old. So that'll come in through the literal now. Protokind. No, that goes on the literal. Okay, now when we make the parser now, if I parse a character literal, then I set the kind to protokind character. RPG literal. Lit local kind equals RPG protokind party. Protokind route. Member string. Yeah, so if the member kind is a string, then that means that we're attempting to map a name through the context. Protokind equals literal kind, protohearts literal hearts, protostrength literal strength, sub ID sub count. That's good. Now that gives us the ability to submit a literal which contains everything but a name. If we want to associate a name, what we do is we give it a name and we give it a proto ID. Okay. So now the way this will work, we don't need to zero these out. Find match if possible. So the bucket mask hash bucket index will be reusable. RPG string bucket called match. We'll start right there. We will go for RPG string bucket context buckets bucket index. If the bucket hash matches the hash and the bucket name matches the name, then the match equals the bucket, and we break. Modify existing match. If match does not equal 0, match ID equals proto ID. Insert new bucket. Proto ID. Buckets. There we go. Small functions and big functions. I'm not sure what you mean. I don't know if am I doing that? Where did you see that? I'm not sure what you mean by splitting files into big functions and small functions. Maybe you're talking about the old Mr. Fourth layer. I used to do that over here. Yeah. If you go over here and you're looking at this one, I think. Base. Yep, big function, small function. So I don't do it this way anymore. I haven't published the new code base in a while. But the reason I did this was because I was trying to work out, so small functions are ones you would want to have inline, so you wouldn't mind having multiple copies of them defined, and you'd rather them be statically linked, whereas big functions were things like either large computations or ones that use some global variable or something, so that you wanted to have one copy of it through the whole program. Point is, these were ones that wanted to link as a symbol and be defined in one object rather than being defined in every object when you link together. I ultimately didn't decide to keep it this way, and I put it all back into one file, but that was the reason at a certain point. I can't remember what the exact reasoning for splitting them into separate files was. I guess it was so that you could still include small functions.c, because you need to include this into every object file, whereas you only include this into one of them. And I like having the C and header files be parallel to each other so that I can have like the header and the C file side by side all the time. So it's probably something like that, but honestly, there's no good reason for it. I don't do it anymore. It was kind of annoying. Okay, so I should now. Yeah, I can't remember. I'm just saying I ultimately didn't like it. I ended up with something different. I can't remember how, like, what the whole path was anymore because it was like a couple years ago. I should definitely try to get the new base layer out sooner rather than later. It's on my to-do list for the year. It's just kind of boring. Not quite ready to do something boring yet. Probably come May, I'll do some boring work. Maybe in April even. Okay, so now the question is, how can I use what I've got so far to recreate this stuff down here? Basically, I'm going to have to go side by side through these. We're going to have this, And then this is going to go like this. Okay. So yes, I need a new context. G context new. You don't have to do that anymore. That comes with the context. Okay, in order to build the protos like I did before, I need to start creating RPG proto new. So one iteration of this is like this: literal RPG literal dot kind equals RPG literal kind or proto kind tile U32 ID RPG set. Whoops! Don't do that. Don't do that. Set name context straight lit ID heart. So like that should work. We do need to return the ID at the end of proto new. I really don't like putting anything that defines a function body into the header files. I get so confused and lost. I only put types and function signatures, like function declarations, into the header files. I don't put function bodies. I used to do it. I know a lot of people do it that way, where you'll just take your helpers and you'll go like, you know, count. Oh, that's an easy one. No need to make that a separate file. I'll just do it right here, right? And so you avoid putting it in the separate file like this. And every time I end up trying to sort out what things do what, and it's like, where are all my functions? Okay, here they all are. Wait, some of them are missing. They're only in the header. Okay, look through the header. Okay, some of the header is very easy to read, but some of it's got some like gnarly code function bodies. So this style, I just get a nice clean list of symbol names, and then I get bodies for functions, separate things. I mean, none of this would be necessary if we weren't bound to the text interface in the first place, but a certain amount of redundant work turns out to be the best way to make the interface work for you, in my opinion, at least. Okay, so what's breaking? Context, buckets, bucket index, got it. So 169. Still no good. Context string count plus equals 1. There we go. That's more like it. Set name. Okay, so then why do we break? Buckets. Bucket index. The bucket index doesn't stay valid forever. So the bucket mask and bucket index have to be calculated at the last minute. But the hash remains the same. Okay. So that looked like it worked. Now what's missing is we need helpers. So for a new tile, all you got to do is pass a name. And we do this. Okay, so we set a tile for each of these. Right, there's our tiles. Now, I also want to set some characters. Captain will be +++1 taunt. Farmer will be +++1, no special ability. Bat will be +1 fly. Okay, so what happens here is we're going to need to summon up a scratch arena. And then what we do is we parse the script as an RPG, what is it called? Parse character literal. So we're expecting a character literal here. That goes on to the scratch. And there's the script. Then we do U32 ID equals RPG proto new context literal. So same as before, we're just making a literal and passing it. It's just now we're making the literal by parsing it off of a script. And then we go RPG set name, context name ID, and return our ID. So there's some tiles, there's some characters. Let me get some of those other ones I had thrown into the previous example. Okay. So that takes care of that part and that part. Now, in theory, I should also be able to do... Oh, and that part. Yeah. In theory, I should also be able to do... parties as Protos. So we could do... Captain party. Let's see, let's just grab a few of the usual ones. Captain party, farmer party. Those are going to look like party new script party new. I don't bother giving it a name. I just give it the context and the description of the party, and I grab an ID for it. So the description of the party is Captain Farmer ... Oops, that's the captain party. The farmer party is just 4 farmers. Okay, there we go. That's the whole of what I had before. That's way more condensed and streamlined now. That's feeling good. Okay, I'll fill in some blanks. So I'm working on a number of projects here. I guess they're yeah, right here, the toolchains project. And let's see, there's also a couple of projects listed in here that I'm doing. So this is mostly the toolchain stuff. This is research stuff like the stat solver I worked on last year. The most recent thing I did was, let's see here, make sure, Mr. Forth programming. Yeah, this one. This video, which came out like a week ago or 9 days ago now, which is just a deep dive research into how to do a shuffle algorithm that respects a partial order constraint. Where's the picture here? You know, something like this, where you're trying to shuffle the array, but you also want to make sure that a certain ordering constraint is preserved in the final output. So I did that recently. I do all these kinds of different random research projects. You'll find more of them. There's the arena use stuff that I've worked on a couple times last year. This, which I spent a bunch of time on last year and gave a talk about. This, which I've been working on and hoping to get out, is the base layer that I use, which is what there's tons of stuff about that on my YouTube channel. So I got these various things going on. If any of them are things you would like to see more, then the idea is you can support me, and there are perks. So it's like being a Patreon. It's like being a Patreon supporter of somebody who's doing work you like, except that Patreon doesn't get a cut because I built this myself. Some of the basic things you get is you earn credits, which means that if I do end up selling some software, every dollar you spent supporting me, you don't spend that again when you go to buy software from me. You don't get double charged, basically. Then there's access to all the devlogs and early announcements, so you get to hear about what I'm working on and keep tabs on it in more detail. And you can join the Discord that I've got, which is free for anybody. But if you get the Discord role, then you can see like Git commits, and the announcements show up on the devlogs, and announcements can show up there and stuff. Then if you go for this one, we also have the index video library. So that's this thing. Well, that's not the right link. That should link. Yeah, that doesn't link the video library like it should. I guess I'm not signed in. That's why you can't see it. If you were a member and you signed in, then you can go click on the video library. The video library is pretty cool. It's got like all of my YouTube videos, or most of them. The most newest ones need to get indexed still, but it's got my video library, and you can like search it and jump to different parts of different videos where I talk about any sort of subject that I've ever put on a YouTube video. You also get certain, like my closed base layer here. So this is the open version of the base layer. But like I said, this is 2 years out of date. So people who have the membership can get the current version or a more current version of a lot of my stuff. And although I don't know if the absolute most recent base layer is on there yet either. And that's it. This last one here is real, except I don't have any support software yet. So this is for now just here if you want to be especially generous in supporting me. But that's what I offer. Yeah, a lot of it's for open source software, like experiments and stuff, research projects. I am currently trying to track down a few more research projects for the year. I've got one on my plate right now that's kind of cool. And that first one I did, the shuffle algorithm, led to so many new avenues to explore that that'll probably be a recurring theme for the next for this year, since there's just so much more to dig into regarding randomized algorithms and stuff. Okay, so we need to implement party new and route new. Yeah, it's a software development / research thing, though. I'm doing a little bit of both. Parse party literal, no name. Parse route literal, no name. Now, the next question is, are these protos coming out correctly? So I want to be able to just like with the parser, I have a dump function at the proto dump. Probably want to pass an indent through this one. And then I want to say we're going to print out the proto. So proto kind. This is going to be straight from proto kind. Proto kind. Am I going to want to iterate the sub IDs again? I think for now that's what I'll do. if the sub count is greater than 0, we'll do space square bracket new line, square bracket new line. RPG proto dump, out context, proto sub IDs I, indent +1. Kind string, proto hearts, proto strength. Else, we just go straight into the new line. And there's you go. That's how you print. That's how you dump out a proto. Now we need to go get this function to exist. I think Red Debug is awesome. I'm really proud of my contribution to it, and I think that Ryan did a really good job on the UI for it. It's so good. It's like the whole thing is so good. I haven't bothered to install it on this computer. Honestly, I haven't figured out, like I haven't gone and built it since I stopped working on it, but sooner or later I should. It's way better. Okay, so we need a proto kind X list. Okay. Let me think. Where are we at here? So we're running. We're not actually calling the context dumper at all. Farmer party, captain party, long route. Zero indentation for each of these, please. Boom. So we get a party with character. We get a party here. Oh, look at that. Those aren't indented. There we go. So the first character has the taunt tile. It just says tile. It doesn't have its name, which is unfortunate. Okay, I gotta think about how that's actually gonna shake out still. I live in the Seattle area. No. Not born in Seattle. Hearts. What is the deal with this last one? Why doesn't it say character? Really, it should say party and then character. It's possible there's something wrong with the route literal parser. So that is making a route. That makes a party. Party literal parser. Seems like it should have everything that it needs to do that right, but it's not doing it right. Okay. I think I was 18 when Handmade Hero started, and I followed Handmade Hero from the beginning. Okay. We're gonna go, this isn't right. We're gonna go debug this. Not you. This. Thank you. Okay, that's no good. So our proto lists 12 children, but what do the sub IDs look like? They're all zeros. Okay, well that's good to know. That places the bug here. Route literal repeats 1 12. So we parse out the 12. We parse the, okay, so the parser is looking at square bracket plus plus 1 square bracket. So we get a party literal. Member first literal. The literal is a character, 2 hearts and 1 strength. Good. Party does not equal 0. I equals 0. I is less than repeats. I plus equals 1. Literal member. Party. Member first. So that party. The party looks good. So it's not actually here in the parse that we're hitting a problem. It must be in the proto new section. Oh, it doesn't know what to do if it encounters another literal. Okay. So our literal construction still needs that recursive part. Or our proto construction from literals still needs that recursive part. So right here what has to happen is we need to go your32 ID equals RPG proto new context member literal. And again, if ID is 0, okay, so all of that stays the same either way. This pulls out like this. Party, character, party, character, party, character, party, character. That's good. Hey, welcome, Valigo and Raiders. Alright, so there's no name collisions here. So that sort of kind of worked. But it did reveal that I made a mistake somewhere along the way, because now I can't see the tile names. And I think tile names maybe are different from character names and other names. When I have a tile proto, I do want to be able to ask what's the name for this one directly. Okay. Okay, okay. No, not proto. I want the context H. Yeah. So I guess I still end up wanting a name right here. And maybe that just only means something if you're a tile. I mean, in a way, what's really happening here is I haven't added any of the tile data into the proto yet. The tile originally was just a name. and like as a placeholder. But when I go to build their real tile system, I think the tile protos want a name, and then they want a sort of state, a definition of what state the tiles of that particular proto, like what's their stacking rules, what's the counter rules on them. Can you have more than one stack of them, or is it like you only get one of these particular tile type? The tiles want to code in their rules in terms of how they stack on each other and how they share space inside of each tile board. And I don't have any of that encoded here yet either. So it's not surprising necessarily that the tile is going to have some state that's missing. So that means when I go to make a proto, right now I just say give it a literal. Let's call that proto from literal just to give us more naming space. And then I guess the other way we want to be able to do this is I'll pass it a name. And so these ones, yeah, I see what's happening here. It's so much like a C-type system, except that none of the pieces that line up with each other are lining up, but all the pieces are there. It's going to be interesting. So for this one, I do actually want validation to check if the name is colliding. Proto-kind tile, proto name equals name. And then we also want to do RPG set name. I'm actually going to move this whole one down to below these. Right. And then the other big thing we can do here is we have two different functions doing prototile new. That's just redundant for now. That's fine. I knew there was more proto new. Where is it? Where is it? From literal. Okay. With the idea then that when we are dumping, if the how do we want to do this? If the proto kind equals if the proto name.size is greater than 0, otherwise we'll do this one. We print that and we give the name proto name Yeah, Protoloose isn't around anymore. I switched over to this thing of having literals. So the parser could be purely data in, data out. It takes in a script string and it outputs one of these things called a literal. And the literal is sort of the same thing that they ended up being very similar. So I just shunted everything over to the literal and dropped the Protoloose. Better yet, I'm going to use this syntax here. We'll just go boom. Cool. Cool. So now I have the names of tiles right on them first class. That's good again to have back. Okay. Let's see, where does that get me for today? So far we've got a new parser up and running, the context stuff, so that's all been rewritten. All of these old files are gonna go now. So errors is already gone. Let me make sure that's true. It's not true, I just closed the buffers. But here we go. Now we are cooking. So errors, done. String ID, you're done. It's all been kind of folded down into one core system that handles everything now, which feels so good. Tile protos, you're out. You know what? I'm tired of doing it this way. Let's just close all the ones that we don't need. Party, route, proto. Okay. Go into the new one. We don't need character. We don't need parser X. I don't think I closed those though. Parser X. We don't need party. We don't need proto. We don't need route. We don't need tile. There we go. Cool. Everything works. I think that's a good spot to commit at. Oops, I'm on the wrong project here. Okay. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna just go grab myself a water. Okay. Let's see here. I want to come up with another step to work on, but unfortunately, we've just transitioned from I've got a chunk of work that I know what I need to do roughly, and I just need to crank, to now I gotta flip through this big notebook of thoughts and figure out where I'm at in the code and all that. So this is nice. Some things that are missing. So there's two main approaches I could take. I could go and track down the spots where I've got to-dos written in the code. So that'd be stuff like here in the parser, there are these to-dos about submitting error messages. How do I want to do that? Over in the context, there are some to-dos about handling errors. Here, there are also some other big things. I'm going to make a to-do list of stuff that I kind of blew past in the process there. But I think we want... Okay, new to-dos. This one is done. I want to deduplicate Protos on construction type system esque. I want to So some other big things I can work on here. I'm not sure if tracking down to-dos is the right thing to do yet, but I will make sure to write that down here. I want to build the error system at some point for the simulator. But some other to-dos that I could track down. So I don't have a brain system to replace the old brain system yet. The first RPG simulator pass, I had this whole thing called a brain system, so I could attach brains to tiles and characters and parties in order to control behavior at different levels of granularity. And there's also the tile scripting, which is how you actually put the rules of the game in. Or at least it's one of the spots where you put the rules of the game in. And it's the spot that makes the rules of the game interchangeable, so you can craft lots of different scenarios out of the system. And I don't have the tile scripting set up yet, so I could track down and try to I could start building towards the tile scripting, but I can't run anything yet to test that anything that I write is working. So the other path that I've been thinking about taking is to start writing the runtime simulation. All of this stuff I've been doing has just been constructing and getting the data structures just right for the entity system, like the proto entity system, in fact. I don't even have a runtime entity system yet. But now that the protos are simplified down to a homogeneous constructed set of protos, I think that running entities on top of that should be doable. Okay. Also, where am I at on time? Still close to 2 hours. We got a lot of viewers right now, so I'd love to keep going, but it does kind of feel like about the right spot to put a break. But let's just cruise. We've got I could do 20 minutes. Let's just do that, and then we'll be set up for another stream, maybe starting tomorrow. Let's see here. So I'm going to do the combat simulation now. Whoops. RPG combat.c, new file, there we go. And what we want here, get those included so we can start seeing. Oh, that reminds me of another to-do I wanted to write down on my to-do list. Where do basic types like literals and protos go? But for combat, we're thinking something like this is the starting point. RPG party. So a very basic combat simulation might look something like this. RPG combat, we'll call that sim combat. Party 1, RPG party 2. How do I want to encode this? I mean, the thing that it feels like I'm reaching towards is just RPG combat result. Party 1 win, party 2 win. Something like that. That'll obviously change over time as it gets more rich and things like parties fleeing can happen. We'll want to be able to describe a number of end scenarios for the combat simulation. Okay. With each round of combat, the rules are if party 1 let me think, how do I want to do this? We're mutating the parties in place and the character states. So that's already a part of it. Why don't I just shrink the character count destructively for now when I have characters go out? That won't always be the way I want it to work, but that seems good enough for now. Party 2 win. Double party wipe. Party 2 wins. Party 1 wins. There's our result. There's our loop. And then how does this part work? Each character is gonna get a chance to go. So what we need is Arena get scratch. Arena release scratch. So we generate a list of combat hits. So the rules of the game for now are going to be simple. Also, I guess I probably want something like this real quick. Just arrange those into an array for me. So I can do for I u32I equals less than 2. Array count parties. For u32j, j is less than parties I character count RPG character equals parties I characters J address of come. And then we're going to look at other party by going parties I XOR 1 64n equals RPG PRNG role bounded RPG PRNG. We'll need to go get that set up. I could probably just pass that through like that. Bounded is going to be other party character count target equals other party characters and address of RPG combat hit. Come on. Hit equals push an array onto the scratch arena. One new hit. Queue that up on the list of all hits. The hit has a target. The hit has an amount equal to the character strength. And we want to increment the hit count. So that generates hits. So the full logic here is for each character in each party, we look at the other party and we pick a random character, and that's our target, and then we generate a hit into the list of hits pointing at that target and with a strength equal to the strength of the character creating the hit. So then we can apply them all in one good fell swoop. The reason to do it this way is so that everyone gets to put their hit in the mix before any of them have their health go to 0 and get eliminated from the party. I think we'll change this up. So instead of having an array of characters like that, we'll have an array of character pointers like that. And that's just going to mean we can swap the pointers around and they'll be stable. Okay, so then we apply the hits. Right now we're not shuffling them or anything, but we probably would do that. more finished version. Hit target. If hit target is less than, if hit target hearts is less than hit amount, then hit target hearts equals 0. Otherwise, hit target hearts minus equals hit amount. Then, for each party, we're going to scan and swap out any any characters that have an HP of 0. So we grab our current character, and if that character has a hearts equal to 0, then we're going to decrement the character count by 1. So 1 less character. And we're going to swap this with whatever was at the end of the array. So I'm getting a little sick of this particular way of writing things. Let me tidy that out. Party characters J, party characters, party character count. So if there are 4 characters and we lose 1, then there are 3 left. So index 3 is the end point where we want to swap the thing that doesn't exist anymore, so it'll be out of play. But then we only increment J if we didn't just swap something from the end of the array into the spot. So we're either incrementing J or decrementing the count. We're handling one, we're eliminating one unprocessed element at a time, one unprocessed character at a time. So that's good. I'm gonna go and apply that same rewrite principle up here, just to get rid of the extra mentions of party index I. Other party looks good. Okay. So we're going to pass PRNG right into this for now because we don't have context PRNG, which might be the next thing to do anyway, but here we go. That's good. So now to set up the simulator, I set up a context. Now I'll need to set up a context, run a simulation. RPG sim combat, RPG combat result, PRNG, we'll make that in a sec. Party 1, party 2, we still need to get our hands on those. PRNG is like this. PRNG seed, OS get entropy, PRNG make init from seed. I believe the syntax for that would be PRNG equals seed. Now we have to set up the parties. So this is where it gets interesting. In order to render out a party for the purposes of combat. We're gonna need some more stuff. RPG, sim, party, arena. This will all go to an entity system eventually. So we don't want to build too much of it in the sort of sketching phase here. But I need to get just enough simulation up and running that I have something to work with. So I'm going to pass it an RPG context and an party proto ID. So it's going to construct a party from the party proto ID. That's the idea. Ultimately, this doesn't really belong in combat. This goes a little outside of combat. Combat's one specific type of encounter, and the entity system should be able to carry gameplay state through multiple types of encounters. But not there yet. That's okay. Okay. Now we need the proto. Context party proto ID. If let's see, RPG party, it's gonna start off as a null. We're gonna want to check that proto does not equal 0 and proto kind equals RPG proto kind party. Then if that's true, we're going to make the party. We're going to go party character count equals proto sub ID count. What's that called? Sub count? Context H. Show me the proto sub count. Okay. And then the party characters is an array like this, and then we visit all of the sub IDs. Proto character proto. This up here is the party proto. Party proto, party proto, party proto. Character proto is RPG proto from ID context party proto sub IDs I. Now, I did say we would do it with a nil, an error-free style with a nil instance. So we don't actually need the null check. Character proto better be a character. And then the party characters I dot hearts equals character proto hearts hearts max equals the hearts again. Party characters I dot strength character proto strength So we're going to want to do RPG character equals push an array RPG character 1. All of these just need to say character arrow. And then finally this needs to get set equal to that. RPG party, party 1, sim party, arena, context, farmer party, goblin party, RPG party new, context, straight lit, goblin, dot dot. Alright, have the farmers go up against 3 goblins and see how they do. They'll probably win, but they'll be in trouble. And then the final thing is we gotta print out the results. So these guys. Okay. And I'll also print the final character counts on each party for good measure. And we'll take that whole thing and we'll run it 100 times in order to capture the spirit of simulation that goes with this whole thing that we're doing here. Boom. You know what? I like it. I want to adjust something. Let's do that. Finally, a new line. Just put them all on one line. Did we ever have party 2 win? No. Yeah, makes sense. Party 1's in fact making it out with usually 3 or 4, but it looks like on one occasion 2 surviving members. So that's cool. Some things we needed to build out in order to work with this system are we need some simulation features we need logging. Logging is important so we can see the log of all the events that happened. So for instance, in a combat loop right here, I might like to see each step of the combat loop as the health of each party, right? The states on each party, so that I can unroll any bugs that might be happening in the combat simulation. I also want well, we can fix one thing right here. So each simulation will run in a temporary memory arena like that for now. But what we really want to get to is we want to be able to have tile effects come into play. And we want to be able to have brain scripts come into play so that the bots can make moves. And we want to be able to do all of this with an entity system. If we do this with a proper entity system, then we're going to be able to string multiple combat simulations together for a single character party or player party. So like I can have party one go through a route instead of just a single adversary. But to do that, I'm going to need to be able to have an entity system that is sort of handling the memory management part of that and tracking the state of the party of one party in between encounters while constructing new parties on the fly for the other party and recycling the memory from when the old parties got discarded and stuff like that. I think that's a good stopping point now. We've got another 20-30 minutes in there and got some good setup for the next steps of the process. So this was day 1. I'm doing this for 7 straight days, so we're going until next Saturday. I'll be doing 4 to 6 to 8, something like that, hours, depending on the day and depending on how much there is to do. So the next big step here is, now that I've got a very tiny little sketch of the combat simulation up and running, is definitely going to be to build out all those simulation features I was just listing. I'm very happy now with the construction of my tile system, character system, and the scripts, the context for handling all of those. There's some unfinished parts of that piece of the puzzle, but I think it's time to fold this part of the puzzle in before I go and bolt things down any tighter on this side. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for coming and checking out what I'm working on. As a reminder to anyone who's seeing me working on this and doesn't know everything else about me, I'm running this website and research lab called Mr. Forth. You can see it at mrforth.com. I rely on memberships and supporters to keep the lab open so I can do projects like these. The current one, this RPG simulator, is just an exploratory project, but it leads to other cool stuff like my YouTube. Let's see if I can pull it up. Mr. Forth Programming. So this shuffling a post set video that I made came from this RPG simulator project. So if you want to go and check that out and see what kind of research projects I do that come out of this, playing around with the RPG simulator, you can absolutely do that. It's a pretty cool subject, I think. And if you're further interested in the RPG simulator, another place you can go to get information about it is if you go to my Mr. Forth Unscripted channel right here, then you'll see I've got a couple of videos out about the RPG simulator, and new videos will come out on this subject as I'm still working on it. But you can see some of the other ideas about what I'm working on there. So I'll be doing this for the next 6 days. Hope I can catch more folks out there coming in and hanging out and asking questions or whatever you like. And I'll see you around. Bye.